Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. It's the talk of the community, the explosive R. Kelly interview with CBS This Morning anchor Gayle King. For the first time since the Lifetime documentary on his life, the singer speaks out on accusations of child molestation, kidnapping, and creating a cult of women who are not free to leave his home. There's also the documentary on pop phenom Michael Jackson, where two of his alleged victims speak out. And then there's Jussie Smollett. So much to unpack about the fates of these three black men front and center in the news. And the Another View Roundtable is geared up and ready to go. Stay tuned. Another View is next.
Discussing today's topics from an African-American perspective, this is Another View.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. Before we get started, I just want to thank everyone who came out last Saturday to our Race Let's Talk About It event. It was a fabulous event where we looked at music and how lyrics indicate or keep us either apart or together, depending on what the lyrics are in terms of race. And it was a great conversation. We had performances by Sibel Galindez and Teddy Holmes at the Z in Virginia Beach. They were awesome, and just thank you for believing in Another View and for coming out and supporting us. We appreciate that. So we've got lots to talk about with our Another View Roundtable, so let's meet them. She's Virginia's relationship expert and a regular on Another View. Please welcome Alvean Lyons. Hey, Alvean.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon. Politics is her life, and she's currently the treasurer for the city of Norfolk. Say hello to Daun Hester, who is actually in her car winging her way to the studio as we speak. Hey, Daun, how you doing?
I'm great. I'm coming.
We'll see you momentarily. And she doesn't practice politics, but instead teaches it to her students at Norfolk State University. Hello, Professor Carol Pretlow. How you doing?
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol, for joining us. And comedian Allison Moore is unable to join us today. But Allison, if you're listening, we're praying for you and we missed you. So we hope things are going well in your world. So, ladies, explosive interview between Gayle King of CBS This Morning and R&B singer R. Kelly. So much to unpack. But before we do, let's listen to this very emotional clip from R. Kelly.
How stupid would it be for me to, with my crazy past and what I've been through, right now I just think I need to be a monster and hold girls against their will, chain them up in my basement and don't let them eat and don't let them out unless they need some shoes down the street from their uncle. Robert, stop it. Y'all quit playing. Quit playing. Robert. I didn't do this stuff. This is not me. I'm fighting for my life. Y'all killing me with this. I gave y'all 30 years of my career.
Robert.
30 years of my career. Y'all trying to kill me. You killing me, man. This is not about music. I'm trying to have a relationship with my kids, and I can't do it. Y'all just don't want to believe the truth. You don't want to believe it.
Alvean, when you saw this interview, what was your initial reaction? Before we get down into the various nuances and things that happened, just your overall initial reaction.
The lady doth protest too much is the first thing that crossed my mind. The way in which he goes through his protest, is, and I understand that if one is innocent, there would be enormous passion behind defending yourself. But there's something about the way he does what he does that leaves you with this nauseous feeling inside of your stomach that just, you can't quite shake it. It's that interior voice that says something is wrong. And we often, as women, ignore that voice. In particular, we try to stifle it because we're like, no, I'm sure this person isn't crazy. No, I'm sure he's not violent. No, I'm sure. We tend to try to tell ourselves stories to comfort or quiet the voice. And the truth is that if we listen to that voice more often, it not only is it healthy for us, to teach our own children to listen to those voices, our little girls, it is healthy for them. that voice inside of me, as soon as he starts talking, makes me
Goes off
yeah,
for you.
it just bells go off on the inside. So, I don't know how to not hear those bells when he's talking. And he could be talking about the simplest things, and it does not change it for me. There's something very predatory about the way that he communicates and responds.
Carol, what was your reaction?
Wow. Well, first of all, I wondered if he had legal counsel, because the first thing that probably would happen if he had an attorney representing him is that they would say, well, let's go through counseling first.
Right.
Because if he got on the stand or if he was testifying, he would come off as crazy.
Absolutely.
And the more impassioned you are in the legal environment, instead of them thinking, oh, person is really passionate about defending themselves, they're like, oh, crazy.
That's exactly right.
And or else this person is definitely guilty. So he needed to bring it down. And when he got up and started pacing, I was like, man, bring it down, because you're losing this.
Daun, what about you?
I thought he was special, and
That's good.
It's a nice way to say it.
Over the course of his life, he has compensated in ways to get to where he is, and there are definite challenges with him as an individual that he has to reconcile. And but you can see why he would have been in classes during my time of children with special needs because of that emotional outburst, and hasn't been taught how to deal with and life. And then as you hear the other people who are talking about him and interviews subsequent to that one, I think it's quite evident that he really needs a lot of help.
So he needs help. So I'm curious because I've kind of done my own little very unscientific research. Very unscientific research. But just talking to different women, I want to play a clip of the reaction of Nora O'Donnell, who is Gayle King's co-anchor. Nora is white, Gayle is African American. And I want to play this clip about her reaction to watching the interview with R. Kelly and with Gayle. Let's play that first, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
To see, though, his behavior, his temperament, is, I think, what is probably what is most revealing of this interview as well. The pounding of the fist, the getting up. I was worried about you. I was actually worried about you when I saw the pictures.
Well, it's funny. Favorite son, favorite daughter, and Oprah all called me and said, were you afraid? Did you think he was going to hit you? I actually never thought that. I think that I thought I might get accidentally clobbered, but I didn't think that he would deliberately try to hurt me. I never felt in danger talking to him. I just felt that he had a lot of emotion. He wanted to release it. And, when it was all over, we had a conversation, we said goodbye, and I think at the end of the day, he was glad that he was able to say what he wanted to say.
So I'm not defending R. Kelly in any stretch of the imagination, but I find it so interesting that when African-American men have emotional outbursts, the first thing is fear, as opposed to when I watched the interview, I did not perceive fear.
Right.
And I'm curious as to what you all thought about that. Alvean.
I had the same reaction that you had to it, and what's interesting is that actually doesn't just end with us as with African American men. When African American people as a whole express passion, you get the angry black woman, and you get the violent criminal black man. And it's one of the things that we struggle with constantly, to be able to be multi-didactic individuals, to have 3 dimensions of personality and passion and issue, and be able to communicate that without it being processed through that particular lens. So I heard the same thing that you heard when she spoke, which is a really tough position to be in, because you absolutely are 100% behind the victims inside of the circumstances, right? There's no question about the fact that you are with them all the way. But you can't help but to hear this undertone inside of the conversation that is deeply race related. It's the processing of culture, the processing of color, the processing of gender. There's this other layer, and you almost find yourself wanting to defend that component when you're not trying to defend the individual. It's trying to stand up for your blackness or brownness or chocolateness, as it drives people crazy when I say that.
Yes, it does. As a matter of fact, we got lots of response last month about that. And I'm going to ask you to explain that one more time.
And I am happy to.
For our audience.
Particularly in this conversation. I am happy to.
But Daun, I'm curious as to your reaction. Did you see it as danger or as fear as opposed to a man who was just totally emotionally taken over?
I saw a man emotionally taking over, that had to just share what he felt, and no, I didn't see fear, but I'm a black woman too, and so things are different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Carol?
Yeah, that's how I felt. In fact, ironically, I felt sorry for him because I felt, okay, here's a person who hasn't learned to handle conflict and difficulties without rage. And I know it's difficult. On the other hand, for Gail, I was so proud. I said, this is showing the world how we as black women respond. We're given that stereotype notion of head rolling and eyes rolling. And here she was perfectly calm and very articulate under the circumstances. So all of these emotions were a part of it.
And what I find very interesting about it, and you know that people always, feel funny about the ties that I make together, but people are people. And we see elements of of personality in lots of ways, and it's responded to very differently. Because when Judge Kavanaugh got passionate on the stand, he was supported and encouraged by some individuals to say that he stood up for what he believed in. He was fighting for his name, and there was nothing criminalized about that. There was not that same reaction, particularly from our more conservative brothers and sisters. So I find it very interesting how we selectively apply aggression and its meaning depending upon what culture you represent.
Hi, Daun. Welcome.
I'm in the studio. Hey, ladies. I'm sorry. Forgive me.
She made it to the studio. So pick up on Alvean's point that we were just talking about in terms of Nora O'Donnell describing it as the pounding of the hand and the fist, and being
scared for your safety.
I was so scared for your safety, etc.
Well, he did what people do when they have their back against the wall. Kavanaugh did the same thing.
Absolutely.
He just happened to be white. And I was glad that Gail did not feel fear. But that is also a part of the dialogue conversation.
Right.
In our culture as people of color, all, not just black. We appear to be emotional in our responses. If you look at some of the clips from when we get upset about things in the community, you see individuals who are emotional, whether what they're saying is right or not. They are
very emotional.
They are elevated. And so you can't... in diffusing a situation or trying to de-escalate a situation, you have to understand that. And, so what? Yes,
Well,
I see your face.
What? Go ahead, Carol.
I see your face, dog.
I see that and I understand that, but I think having grown up in the 50s and 60s, we were taught also during marches and all, restrain, do not get emotional. And that ability transcends itself into other dynamics of our lives.
And I think the key, don't forget your thought, the key is we were taught.
Taught.
Absolutely.
It's not taught now.
No.
Because I too remember when I was assaulted, the first thing the police officer said, I said, I want to call my mother. He said, oh no, women get emotional. I said, you don't know my mother. No, she doesn't. And then later I learned that it upset her. But during the process of going through the planning for the court and all of that, she was very composed.
Well, I think it's very interesting in that, yet again, it's the processing, the way in which our emotions are processed versus our counterparts' emotions are processed, because you don't hear angry thug mob when a whole bunch of participants in a football game are mad about the outcome and they are flipping over cars and doing all kinds of craziness in the street. They're just passionate, enthusiasts. They are hardcore for their team. So it's processed one way. When, depending upon what that group is, if we were walking down the street with tiki torches and, semi-automatic weapons, it would be a national emergency and everybody would be out. But in Charlottesville, that is not what the response was when they're chanting and everything else that was happening. So I think that it would be disingenuous for us to not acknowledge the fact that we do not have the freedom to be able to be and do and say what we feel the way we want to say it without having to think about what that is going to mean to somebody else. Our Black men are taught to be small to survive. You have to turn down your manhood. You have to learn how to emasculate yourself in order to save your life in certain situations. So that taught factor that Daun was referencing, it is a survival mechanism in communities of color that are not true for our brothers and sisters. So I find it very interesting how our emotion is processed.
I found it interesting, the visceral reaction I had to it. I wasn't expecting that. I mean, I'm watching it. I'm just kind of watching it. Right. And then I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Where honestly, I looked at a person, as you said, Daun, whose back is against the wall. This man is getting ready to lose everything. Everything. Okay, let's talk about the two young ladies who currently live with him, and who say very openly their families are wrong, that they are in love with him, that he loves them. Let's listen to a clip from them first.
Is it a three-way sexual relationship?
Sexually? Well, first of all, I'm not here to talk about my personal life. Okay. And I would never share with no one what I do in or outside of the bedroom. And as a woman, I'm sure you would not either.
Yes. No, I wouldn't, but
okay, then. Next question.
No, you're right. I would not, but this is a very different circumstance.
It's not a different circumstance. There are people all over the world who have multiple girlfriends. It's no different.
Do both of you all believe you're in love with him?
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Of course.
Should your parents be concerned?
No.
They say that you were brainwashed. I talked to your dad last night. He says he was here 2 days ago and you wouldn't even look him in the eye.
Okay, I wouldn't look him in the eye because he's a liar, and he's a manipulative liar.
They say we found text messages that indicated that she was having sex with R. Kelly when she was 17. Is that true?
No, that is a lie. That is a lie. I was not having sex with him at 17.
Why would they want to lie about you, their daughter?
Okay, so when I first met Robert, my parents told me to lie about my age. So when I met him, he thought that I was 18. On top of that, when I was 17, my parents were trying to get me to take photos with him, take sexual videos with him, all kinds of stuff.
Wait. Your parents encouraged you to do sexual videos with R. Kelly?
Yes. And they said because if they ever have to blackmail him, what they're trying to do now, they can use it against him, which is exactly what they're doing.
That was Azriel Clary and Joycelyn Savage. Response, reaction. Daun.
I'm going to pray for them. Because clearly they're in a relationship as two sisters with one man or however many women. And they have decided that it's okay to be in a relationship that has multiple partners. And I think they need counseling too.
This whole situation, Alvean, I mean, you're the relationship expert. But honestly, the whole dynamic of this older. Now he is R. Kelly's in what, his 50s.
Now he is.
These young ladies are 22 and 23, I believe, or somewhere early 20s. What's going on?
What's funny is I get in trouble every time I have this conversation about age differences, right? Because in certain parts of society, it is totally appropriate for you to be 70-something and your wife is 40, which is a 30-year gap also.
True.
Which would be the very fact relative to our current president and his wife. So if we were to make him 50, his wife would be in her 20s. So there are places in our society that seem to be perfectly fine with putting a stamp of approval. And I'm not saying that it is okay or not okay. I'm just saying that it's very interesting to me that the same people who are like, oh, it's just wonderful that this man is so successful and so accomplished and wants to believe he's so attractive, that his wife is 30 years his junior. And it's applauded in that environment. And those same people who can applaud that in that environment will turn around and look at an R. Kelly. And let's just pretend for the sake of this conversation that we weren't talking about a criminal issue, which we certainly are. Right. But if we were to just separate it slightly and that this was just the dynamic inside of the relationship, those same people will have issue when it's a man of color and a young woman, but not have issue when it's someone else and a younger woman. So I'm sensitive to the incongruence between those two things. If you're going to have a problem with it universally. If you're not going to have a problem with it, don't have a problem with it universally. But the selective nature of that makes me a little uncomfortable, to say the least.
So Israel is 21 and Joycelyn is 23. Do you think they're brainwashed?
Yes. Absolutely. And there's no question about that. Now, here's another, back to the cultural dynamic. If you watch The Bachelor, which is a show I happened to find delicious junk food, okay? I almost never miss a Bachelor episode.
Okay.
I gotta look at it. I'll be honest.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
Full disclosure.
I have never seen it.
Well, because I do relationships for a living.
Right.
I'm just entertained by
okay.
all of these dynamics. So I've watched this for season after season. And you're talking about 20-something women dating the same man. 20-something-year-olds who are all dating the same man,
so
and all believe they're in love with the same man and support each other in pursuit of being able to be the wife at the end of all of this.
So for those in our audience, hang on, Carol, who may be unfamiliar with The Bachelor, just set up the overall premise of the context.
So you'll either have a bachelor or a bachelorette, an individual who was voted on by the audience at large, national America, who is saying that this person would make this great bachelor or bachelorette. Then 20 plus people are brought in to meet this individual, and their stories are all told. It's beautifully done, I must tell you, beautifully done for the harem that's going to be involved. And then the bachelor or bachelorette dates each of these people, and every week they're eliminating a certain number of the individuals. And it appears that it goes on for probably about a 2-month period of time. And at the end of the show, this individual, the bachelor or bachelorette, is standing somewhere beautiful, prepared to propose to whomever the winner is of this experience. And the last step of the experience before the proposal is an overnight. So you are going to spend overnight with 3 different women to decide who your final 2 are, who you take home to meet your family, that ultimately turns into the one that you choose to propose to. And of the, I don't know how many seasons there have been, several of them are actually married to the same person that they met on that show. So it has worked for some of them. Some of them have been married over a decade at this point. So I won't even get into the names because I actually know those too. But point is that people are consciously choosing to be in a relationship with someone fully aware that there are other people that are inside of that relationship too. So I think it's a matter of how we want to look at it when it's consensual and intentional and everything is open and it's all on the table versus, and it's so beautifully done versus what it is that we're talking about in the situation. But both of those girls are very aware of the fact that they are with the same man.
If you're just joining us, we're talking about celebrity and crime with the Another View Roundtable. Relationship expert Alvean Lyons, Norfolk City Treasurer Daun Hester, and political science professor Carol Pretlow. If I wish as the audience we were on TV at this moment so that you could see Carol's face. Carol, react to what Alvean was just saying, because your face is like, I don't believe that this is going on.
You hit so many dynamics that, okay, age, I don't have a problem with that because I see that people react to different ages based on their experiences. I do have a problem, though, with living in the same house with, you might know that that it is not a monogamous relationship, but you're not living with that other person.
But if we go to Utah, you got sister wives, folks who are sharing a spouse.
Okay.
I mean, if we start talking about the cultural differences.
But with R. Kelly, the issue is, did these relationships start prior to them being adults?
Totally agree.
Number one. And number two, does the factor of not being connected with your family matter? Because I know, when people are in abusive relationships, one of the things that is kind of a hallmark is the isolation and keeping yourself away from your family. Dawn?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that his former wife said that when she went through the checklist of things
that show whether or not you are,
there were only two that she did not select. And that was an aha moment for her to see that she was in an abusive relationship. And so that too is a part of what is an abusive relationship. And as for women, as we're here, how do we capture that when we're dating someone or looking to see if this is Mr. Right? How do we know that if what he is doing is not manipulating us to become the one, and then he'll turn around and turn on us or whatever? What are those signs and symptoms? I'm like, everybody needs to look at that list, when you're in the dating mode, so at least you can put it in your head to go, okay, well, I don't know. I think he is finished as an artist. No matter the music. But I don't understand.
Do you think that people really will stop listening to his music? Do you? I mean, honestly,
I don't. I mean, he's made some great songs. I mean, but yeah, I don't know them all.
It depends how. No, not about. When I said some, I really mean in terms of. It depends how passionate you are about your position around the issue.
Right.
So for people who are super passionate, that's a principal issue for them. So they're perfectly happy. I don't listen to his music at all. I also don't listen to Michael Jackson's music.
Well, I was going to say that's a nice segue to our next topic, which is it's okay. So Leaving Neverland came out over the weekend, HBO documentary, and. We pulled a tape, but it's 12 o'clock on a Friday. I don't know. It's a little graphic, so I think I'm going to not play the tape.
But will you set it up for us?
But the setup being that there are two young men. Well, they were young men at the time with Michael Jackson, and they Wade Robson and James Safechuck, and they at one point said they were not molested by Michael Jackson, and during his trial and so forth, they did not come forward, and now they've had a change of heart or an epiphany, or I don't know whether it's counseling or what it was that made them change their mind. Excuse me, but now they've come forward in the documentary, and they're talking about what happened in their relationship with Michael Jackson. So the question is, can we separate the celeb and the music from the individual, or should we?
No.
Okay. Why?
I don't think so.
Okay, why?
Because I think that what money does, because ultimately that's what it is at the end of the day, what money does is it magnifies whatever our character issues are. So I feel like when you're willing to support someone who you know is principally wrong, and in this situation, morally and ethically wrong, it's the same thing as for me. It's the same thing as investing in that which one does not believe in. I don't purchase things from stores or individuals that I know that you're using this money, or that you make your profit on child labor, or that I know that your practices are incongruent with my value system. I don't buy those things. I don't patron those places. So for me, it is no different than my vote or my finances. By listening to it, I feel complicit in supporting what it is that you are going to invest your money to be able to do.
Does it matter that Michael Jackson's no longer alive to defend himself?
Well, I think that makes this challenging, because people would argue that the documentary was one-sided. So I do understand the argument behind it. But even when he was alive, let's be honest, when a grown man says that boys get to come sleep in his bed, if my husband ever said something crazy like that, I would call the police myself. Yeah. So I find it very interesting that the people are really upset that he can't defend himself. Well, given what he said when he was alive, they're not making up the fact that he always said that the most beautiful thing that you can do is to open your bed one to another. Who in their right mind is okay with their child sleeping with a grown man you don't know? This is not your uncle or your father. So I find it hard to believe that people don't believe it. That's more challenging for me, not given what the boy said, just given Michael's orientation. And he always looked uncomfortable with women. He never seemed to want to touch them. If you ask any body language expert, you can see that the closeness of women was very uncomfortable for him. That when he had to kiss Presley, the discomfort with which he could have thrown up in his mouth the way that he responded to that physical interaction. There was nothing natural about that for him. But when you see him with young children, it was completely natural. It was organic. It was fluid. That is where he found his comfort and his intimacy. So his life was the thing for me that was more defining than this documentary post his life.
And he was special too. Mm-hmm. He was special too. I mean, and we have to realize that he has the genius in the music.
Right.
R. Kelly has the genius in the music. Mm-hmm. But as individuals, there are special needs there.
Deeply flawed.
Yeah, deeply flawed.
Right, right.
Yeah, I felt the same way. There are other areas where people are superior intellectually, or their craft. They might be good writers, lawyers, doctors, Indian chiefs, but on a personal level, not so. And for me, I try to separate the two. Now, fortunately, I don't know the behind the scenes of most people. I judge them based on their interaction with me. But then when I hear of something like with Michael Jackson, I never was able to look at him or view his videos or anything after I heard of his relationships.
But
with
what is it about us as a society that we put people on such a pedestal that almost anything that they may do as a human being, and I'm not talking about the horrible stuff that they're doing.
Not
I'm
the criminal stuff.
The criminal stuff. I'm talking about just in general. We put people on such a pedestal and they disappoint us so much that I wonder, is it really their fault or is it our fault for elevating folks to a place where they can't possibly stay. What do you think,
it's
Dawn?
our
So
fault.
beautifully said.
I think it's our fault.
I totally agree.
You know, people talk about me, Miss Hester, you so and so and so. I'm like, I'm just a woman trying to do my job. You know, and so,
the truth.
But it's how people look at you, perceive you from your work in the community, the things that we have done. Then they try to put you somewhere where, you know, we just hardworking people.
Right.
Exactly.
But we have to help people see that, because we want people to be successful too.
Exactly.
You know, so my confidence hadn't always been where it is, but I want you to know that, because wherever you're trying to put me, you put yourself. You try to get up there, or whatever it is you think or you see in your own personal space. And so, you know, I just, bring it back down. I don't know why we do that. I think I think too, it might just help us feel special about the person that we are viewing or seeing or building that relationship with, or that we can say we know. And maybe that
So it
has
builds our
something
self-esteem because we
to
can
be
say
able
we know
to
them.
say I'm connected in some way, or have shared
Interesting.
something with them in conversation, or I really don't know, but I do think for when people do that to us, that we should help them to see my blood is the same as yours, bleeds the same way as yours, bathroom same way as yours, all that kind of stuff. It's just, I've just had an opportunity to do certain things.
Right.
And I want you to have those same kind of opportunities.
Exactly.
I think a lot of times it's that we as humans have a fundamental desire to want to believe in something. It's the thing that we love about Disney, the magic of it all. And we want to believe that people have a little piece of that magic on the inside of them too. So our tendency is to want to find someone to think that they're amazing, or that they've accomplished that which we can only dream of, but you're real and you've done it. So there's a connectivity to the dream, to the divine as a byproduct. I mean, we do it with our pastors. We used to do it with our politicians. We do it with celebrities. We do it with, and I said used to, okay? Asterisk.
It should be used to with pastors too.
Right. But truth be told, it's exactly what Dawn was saying. We're all just human. And I remember for years early on when I first started to, do media work and this, that, and the other. And because people would feel like they knew me through my media work.
Right.
I had one or two friendships that early on that I realized very, very quickly that if I meet you like this, if you know me through media first, we have a very hard time inside of our friendships, because I can't be just normal. Like, I have to be the relationship expert when I have days when I'm like, child, I didn't even want to feed my kids today. Okay. I'm not allowed to have those days because you're the relationship expert. I wasn't allowed to have days when I didn't feel like I wanted to go home today. Like, I really want to drive a half hour longer because I don't feel like going home today, because I love these people, but I don't like them today. I don't want to go home. So like, I wasn't afforded those other dimensions of my humanness. So I had to, and yet again, I say to Dawn's point, I had to make sure that very quickly, and I actually do it publicly very much now, that look, we are on the same level. Don't let the bio fool you. Don't let the, the accolades fool you. We are so together in this thing. We're just doing it in our own respective lanes.
Right.
So I'm with
Somebody wrote on Facebook, and I'm going to give you a chance to explain this. So they said, Alvean has turned this into a black and white issue instead of criminality. Let her explain vanilla and chocolate. Okay. So first of all, I think you were very clear in saying that that we're not taught when we were discussing the reaction. I think they were talking about the Norah O'Donnell
absolutely.
reaction,
and then I brought up Brett Kavanaugh,
and that you
also.
right,
and then The Bachelor. I own it all. I said it all.
But that you were very clear that you were talking about in terms of relationship. We weren't talking about the criminal act. No one is downplaying or justifying the criminal act. Please hear that clearly. We are not saying that this man is justified if he in fact is guilty of any of this. That is okay. That is not what we're saying at all. But in last month, apparently, I wasn't here. Lisa, thank you, Lisa, hosted the round table, and you did your vanilla and chocolate, which upset a lot of people who were not chocolate.
Which is so interesting to me.
Explain, please, why you say vanilla and chocolate as opposed to black and white.
Okay. So when I was younger, I grew up in an exclusively white environment. We were the only black family in my neighborhood for years. There were several times that my closest friends, people I loved dearly, did not know how to, at that age, we were in the 80s, did not know how to process race and talk about race. And I was sleeping over my best friend Taryn's house. And she was having a conversation with someone over the telephone, and she was trying to tell him, it was a boy she liked, and there was another boy, and she wanted us to all go meet. This was in middle school, wanted us to all go meet. And he asked about me, and I heard her say, she is poo-poo color. Of all of the things you could have described me as, she said that I was poo-poo color. So her association, you're my best friend. But like I said, I'm the only brown person. I went to AP. I was in AP classes. I, lived in a lovely neighborhood. I was the only brown person. So when she said that I was poo-poo color, for the first time in my life, I looked at my skin and realized that you process my skin as something ugly and dirty and not nasty. Worthy and nasty. I mean, you chose excrement to describe my skin. And I made a decision at that moment that I was going to find a way to help people because I didn't believe she hated me. I just believed that brown for her had a different association, and I didn't want to make the person I loved seem like a horrible human being. But I recognized in that moment the pain that I instantly felt because I'm now 43 years old and I can tell it to you and feel it like it was yesterday. And so I decided then that I would no longer let the color of my skin be processed and communicated in a way that was so ugly and disgusting. So I thought, what is the most delicious brown thing I could think of? And the answer was chocolate. And I think that it's whatever grace you afford yourself, you need to afford someone else. And I said, what is the most delicious, creamy thing I could think of? And I thought of vanilla. And I decided that I would only communicate about race through things that had naturally beautiful and delicious associations. And regardless of people's desire to maintain the polarization of black and white, because there's power perceived in it and deficiency perceived in it, and it separates us rather than bringing us together, that I was going to make a personal commitment that I will not communicate about race in ways that allow us to exist on opposite places in our hearts, but rather to be able to talk about it in the delicious beauty of what happens when you bring it together. So I'm not bothered that people are hung up on their thing. And for someone who thinks that their power is in their blackness or their power is in their whiteness, and they don't want to give up that label because it means something to them. My superiority is that you see me as white, or my strength is that you see me as black. You can have that if you want to. But I shall not participate in the polarization that you love so dearly. You can't make me want to feel separate from people that I love and feel very together with. So for me, it's not black and white. It's chocolate and vanilla, because in ice cream and in dessert, it is delicious when you mix it together. So I maintain my position.
All right.
So there we go. Absolutely. But, because we get, feedback, and I pass it on to you. But those who said, that they felt that was insulting to call white people, particularly, to be called vanilla.
Some of my closest friends, literally, one of them I call Van, short for vanilla. He calls me Choc, short for chocolate. I have so many. I grew up in an all-white environment. So it's not as a byproduct of being this other something that doesn't relate. It's because I don't want the people who live inside of that community, the people who have not had beautiful brown relationships, to make the mistake of not seeing brown as delicious and beautiful the way that I see your white as delicious and beautiful. I want to afford you a language and a psychology that changes the way that you see race.
Okay. Last topic, and we got to get to it. So let's play the interview with Jesse Smollett and Robin Roberts.
What were your injuries? What were
they did x-rays. It was reported that I had like fractured ribs or cracked ribs or something like that. That wasn't true. I was just in a lot of pain. You know, my clavicle was messed up, my rib was bruised, but nothing was cracked. Like, I walked into the hospital. I walked out of the hospital.
Why do you think you were targeted?
I can just assume, I mean, I come really, really hard against 45. I come really, really hard against his administration. And I don't hold my tongue.
And there is no doubt in your mind what motivated this attack?
I could only go off of their words. I mean, who says empire, this MAGA country, ties a noose around your neck and pours bleach on you? And this is just a friendly fight? I will never be the man that this did not happen to.
Daun, when you found out that there was question as to whether or not it actually happened, what was your reaction?
I know my responses have been kind of short today. I was disappointed in him. And I know there's, still investigating, but it's kind of known. So this is it. I wondered why he felt the need to perpetuate a situation of that nature, knowing how challenging it is in communities, LGBTQ community, all communities. He's a person of color, he's chocolate. To do that and to not think about the repercussions of it when it's discovered, to know that now you are through.
Yeah.
So your empire is done. You'll be coming off.
They've already written him out.
I know. And then, his music.
Yep.
I don't know who's going to hire him. I don't know who's going to listen to him. Who's going to make those decisions about what do we want to hear him anymore? Mm-hmm. And as a person in the LGBTQ community, how that has impacted them with all of the work that they have been doing to try to bring some equality into their lives as individuals just trying to make a living, love themselves and love life. So it was so painful. It was just painful.
Carol, did it set us back politically also? Because he admits, he's come hard against 45, as he says. He's talking about the President of the United States. He talked about MAGA, Make America Great Again. Did it hurt us from a political perspective too?
I think on the surface it did, because there are people who are vanilla, who are looking at, see, I got that, who are almost feeling for excuses to say, well, this is why we don't give chocolate people a certain esteem, why we don't.
We can interchange vanilla and chocolate and black and white. It's okay. It's okay.
Don't feel obligated.
But why we don't recognize it.
On another level, I just think for the black community, it's just like, okay, baby, you gone. You're it. You have taken yourself from a position of esteem in that show, and I didn't look at it, so I didn't know what it was like, but you have gone down. And for us, we have pride in so many things, and when somebody gets that pride, there's a certain responsibility for all of us. Yes, we are all individuals, but we're also conscious that we represent a whole community. I do, even when I want to say something very nasty, I'll remember, oh my gosh, I better not say that right now, because I'm representing not just me and my immediate family, but the whole African-American community. I think he didn't think about that.
The fact that he chose Chicago also, of all places, to do this, claim that this happened, with all of the racial strife and all of the crime and everything else that city is dealing with. The police chief was
offended. Offended.
Completely.
When people have done so much work, and, to both Carol and Dawn's point, when people have done so much work trying to build, repair, be taken seriously, the city itself has been working very hard to change the narrative around the city. So you LA boy, come here, and you're going to tarnish our city. People were not standing for it. So that's the first thing. The second thing I will say is that it's the same reason for women. We would hate to find out that a woman lies about being sexually assaulted, because there are so many of us that is truly our story, that when you lie like that, you set all the other women back who are telling the truth about their story. Now theirs is questioned in terms of their authenticity and honesty. So he violated the LGBTQ community. He violated people of color. He violated Democrats or non-Republicans, be you independent or not. And then he just violated good, honest Americans as a whole. There were countless violations that took place inside of that one incident that was clearly not well thought out at all.
Does anybody know why
he did it?
Yes. That is the one thing for me. I just can't wrap my brain around what made him sit down and come up with this. This would be
a
okay.
good way to spend $3,500.
Yes, I just don't get it, Carol.
I think he was looking at, okay, if I do this and get away with it, my numbers, my ratings are going to go up, and I will have carved myself out. The thing that really bothers me about this is also the resources, the cost of police protection and the safety that we treasure. It's not just like people sitting around on their free time. Oh, I'm going to investigate. We have to pay these people. The city budget is affected by this. And so you're wasting time and resources and money. And that's infuriating.
I'm sure they're going to get that back.
Yes,
because
for sure.
When he is convicted.
You get the last 45 seconds.
I get the last 45 seconds. This has been a great round table as always, and we have covered topics that will continue to impact us for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think that all of us, those who are listening and sharing the conversations with others, we have to think about who we are and what we want and what we expect and how we want to work together.
Amen.
In our communities, in our jobs, and just even in our families to make things better. And that's why we have Another View.
That's why we have another view. Ladies, thank you again so very much. I do appreciate that. And before we say goodbye today, here's a community event that is for all you singers out there, okay? Everybody here. It's called Hymns for Him Incorporated. Will hold its second annual community hymn sing on Sunday, March 17th, 2019 at 4 p.m. at First Baptist Church, Butte Street. That's at 418 East Butte Street in Norfolk. Congregants from around Hampton Roads are invited to attend and join in the congregational singing of hymns for the Easter season. For more information, visit hymns, HYMNS, for him, HIM.org, and check it out. Next time on Another View, what Hampton Roads Transit wants to do to make public transportation work for all of us and what they need from all of us to make it happen. Our theme music was composed and performed by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Todd Washburn is our audio engineer. And Jimmy Cooper didn't have any phones to answer today, but that's okay. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Thank you so very, very much for listening to Another View.